Hello there, and welcome to the last part of the Paranormal Investigation Stories, in which I was involved with Haunted Yorkshire Paranormal Research Group. Unfortunately, due to a series of events in people's lives, the group had to draw to a close. However, we have remained friends ever since and still talk to each other to this day. This particular investigation, I cannot tell you where it was because of the Official Secrets Act. All I can tell you was that it is a military base somewhere in the north of England. And it was a major feat just getting onto the base in the first place. Needing birth certificates, driving licences, passports, etc., etc. to get past the man in the sentry box with the machine gun. Quite intimidating, to be fair. But once we got through, we were fine. And we entered towards where the living quarters, where the houses were within the base. And we were met by who I will have to call Mr. and Mrs. X. Mr. and Mrs. X both invited us into their home, and on going through the front door, immediately to the right was a staircase of around 6 steps which led to a landing before some more steps going up to the upper floor. And as soon as I walked into the building, I was aware of a shadow of a figure right there on that first landing. And this particular figure, I said, would be seen by quite a lot of people. It would appear to be looking down into the lounge area. And as soon as people saw it, it would just evaporate. And one of the reasons this was going on is because, again, it wasn't a grounded spirit. It was just residual energy. Again, like a playback from times past. The family told us about certain goings on that were happening within the home, with the constant sound of footsteps day and night from the upper floor, the dog running round the Miss X's bedroom, jumping on the bed and barking into a corner, a cat apparently staring at nothing. Miss X had reported seeing 4 very bright lights on towards the ceiling of her bedroom, which had hovered for a few minutes before shooting towards the carpet and leaving a trail behind them. People who had visited the house, family and friends, had also witnessed certain goings on. I believe one lady actually said that she had experienced or could see what she could only describe as a sphere coming down the stairs towards her. Not an orb, but a large sphere. A couple of the team members did the baseline tests, went to check out for natural phenomena, as we've spoken of before, just to show that where there were any natural occurrences of cold spots, creaky floorboards, open windows, etc., etc., that it wasn't paranormal and purely natural. When this was done, Dawn set up her camp in the lounge with the owners of the property, and I went upstairs with the new member of the team called Darren, and we entered into the first bedroom. And as I walked into the bedroom, I was very aware of a gentleman stood there. He was stood with his hands on the windowsill, looking out onto the paved area in front of the house. And oddly enough, Mr. X actually confirmed that by saying that every night when he came home from work, he felt as though he was being watched from that window. On entering the alpha zone and conversing with the spirit world, I found out that this gentleman was called, I think if I remember rightly, Robert Parnell, and he was aged between his late 30s and the early 40s. As he stood there, he had a black t-shirt on with a university logo on the chest. It had a quartered shield, and if I remember correctly, it said University of, and then California. As I was there, Robert showed me a packet of senior service cigarettes. He liked to have a smoke, and apparently he liked to have a drink. He was an electrician. He was working in the construction industry when parts of the base were being built. He worked very hard, but he also played very hard as well, which unfortunately led to his untimely death. He said that he wanted to say sorry to Mary because his passing had broken her heart. As I was conversing with him from the spirit world, he told me that he'd been taken from there following the heart attack, and I knew he'd had a heart attack because I could feel the pain here on the left hand side of my chest, and that he had been taken to a nearby hospital where he had died, and the doctors and nurses had worked on him, and they brought him back round with the use of the shock thing, and unfortunately, as he said, I'm one of the only men who have died twice, because he actually passed away into the spirit world several hours later. I found here that Robert, again, was purely a residual energy, a memory of the past, as we have already spoken of, and that it was of no detriment to the family. He was just there, and sometimes he would be seen and other times he wouldn't, but people would be aware. They would have that sense of being watched, just as Mr. X did. On entering Miss X's bedroom, Darren and I were looking round, and I became aware of a gentleman coming in, and this gentleman was a grandfather figure, and he was the one who was responsible for stroking Miss X's hair. Many times she said that she had felt a breeze blowing past her face. Well, this was this grandfather figure. He also said that he often would sit at the end of the bed looking at her, and some of these points she may have thought it was one of the pets, but it was actually this grandfather figure who was just watching her and making sure that she was fine. Again, just in visitation, so he came and he went, varying times. He was very benign, a very nice old guy, very pleasant gentleman indeed. Joan at this point was in another bedroom with another one of the investigating team, and Joan became aware of a spirit girl called Grace, and Grace was about 18 years old, and she told Joan that she was looking for her true love, and Joan said the name sounded like Kevin. It was certainly starting with a K, and Joan was quite emotional over this because I think it was the first time that she'd ever seen spirit, ever witnessed spirit, and then she really got spooked after asking Grace, would you like us to help you? And Grace said yes please, but the yes please was spoken directly into Joan's ear, which, as I say, spooked her out a little. She spoke with me about it and we re-entered that room, and Grace was still present. And the name that I was getting was the name Kenneth, again beginning with a K. And I believe that Grace was connected to Kenneth. Perhaps they were sweethearts. There was something, they were in love with each other. Grace was from the Black Country down in the Midlands, and she'd been relocated into the north of England, working as a land army girl. And she had met Kenneth, who was from the Canadian Air Force. And I believe he said that he was from a town called Weston, which was in Ontario, and he was based in the north of England during the war years. Sadly, Kenneth had died following a fuel explosion, which, if I remember rightly, at the time, I believe I could see a tanker, so he had passed very quickly. Again, Kenneth had passed over, and as I contacted the spirit world again, I was given the name Kenneth, and I was also given which was either the surname or a nickname of Pinko. Don't know how they spell it, but it sounded like Pinko. On talking to Grace, we discovered that following Kenneth's death, she had actually taken her own life. She was 18, 19 years old at the time, and due to being so distraught at Kenneth's passing, she had actually killed herself in a gas oven. And she was, in my opinion, the only grounded spirit within that house. And we found out that the reason that she was grounded was because she was afraid to move on into the next world. Mr. X came up to the room and he was talking with us, and he said that he believed that his own daughter, Miss X, was actually the reincarnated soul of Grace, because of Grace's young age and the old head that she had on her shoulders. It was as though she had known far more than her age gave away. Anyway, we spoke with Grace, and she informed us that due to being a Roman Catholic, she was absolutely terrified that she would be cast into purgatory, or even worse, hell, because she had been told that to take your own life was the worst sin that you could ever commit. It was the unforgivable sin, as according to their teaching, God was the only one who could remove your life from you, the giver of life, and he taketh it away. We spoke with Grace for several minutes, and we asked her, would you like to go into the light? Would you like to see your family and your loved ones once again? To which Grace replied, I really would, but I am so frightened of passing over. We managed to reassure Grace that there was no hell and death, there was no judgment, and it was time that she moved on, to move into the spirit side of life. We offered up a prayer, and we had a tangible feeling again of Grace actually leaving the building. It was as though the building itself went, a sigh of relief. And it was wonderful again that we were able to be a part of this spirit rescue, of this poor tormented soul who had been there since the war. At this point, Mr. X came up with the dog. This is the dog which always jumped on the bed, stared into the corner of the room and barked. This time the dog did absolutely nothing. It was calm, it was fine. It wasn't fazed at all by the room, because the spirit had gone. it was absolutely fine. At this point we all went back downstairs and we checked over a few things, we chatted with the owners, and we said that we thought or believed that the sound of footsteps upstairs were nothing more than the contraction of central heating pipes under the floorboards, and suggest that perhaps that they got somebody in to look to see if they needed extra brackets to fasten them down so they couldn't move around. And that was it really. We called it a day or a night, as the case may be. We thanked the owners of the property for allowing us in, and it had been a very interesting experience once again, to be involved in the spirit world, to be involved with a family who were grateful that we'd been to help. And it was such an amazing place to be, considering where we were and all the guns that were around. It was quite scary in many ways. Anyway, we got into our cars, we set off past the sentry. The sentry waved us along and waved us goodbye, and as we were driving up the road away from the base, there's a beautiful sight. It was the dawn just breaking, and there were 3 or 4 deer running across the road, and it was an absolutely beautiful sight to see. And again, it was as I say, a wonderful investigation. A few weeks later, Dawn, the group's founder, received an email from Mrs. X to say that the house had remained calm ever since, and the dog was fine, and the only thing that people were still seeing was the figure on the first landing of the steps. And they said that this didn't bother them at all anymore, knowing that it was residual energy. And in fact they had spoken to him, and they'd made him a part of the family. Even Mr. X and Miss X, on their way to bed on a night, would say good night to him. So all was well, it all ended well. My time with Haunted Yorkshire Paranormal Research Group was wonderful. I loved every single minute of it, and if I had chance to do it all over again, I would. We had good fun and we investigated some great places. So that's the end for these Haunted Yorkshire Paranormal Research Investigation Stories. However, there will be more, as I have also worked with a group called Spiritual Renaissance, and I have also worked with a group called Out of the Dark, and I will be relaying some of those stories in the coming days. I have many happy memories of many wonderful places and of many wonderful people, both dead and alive. And I thank you all once again for listening to me, and ask again, if you've enjoyed what you see, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Graham Jenkinson. Click the bell if you would like further notifications of the next series of investigations. And click like. Feel free to leave a comment. I'm quite happy to answer any questions you may have with regard to the paranormal. And once again, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure for me recalling these memories, and it's been a wonderful experience all round. So I thank you all. Namaste. Peace to you all.